Again, we're a bit behind time, so I want to do this. It's actually 12 points. I didn't tell Paul Merriman that, but I'll get through them quickly enough. This is derived from a report we did for Brokers Ireland. We went through, it's actually a 42-page report, so I'm giving you the Reader's Digest version, so you don't really need to read it too much, but have a reference maybe. I want to go through the 10 points we have, 12 points we have. I suppose the reason why we did it is I think people are sometimes getting a bit overwhelmed when they hear this kind of stuff. They're seeing illness definitions, they're seeing it's gone to 100 illness definitions now if you went on the ClearChoice system. Yeses and partials, what's the difference? The older contracts, new versus existing definitions. The level of detail, I mean, if you look at some of them, they're like mini thesis, loss of independence, cancer, but we're here to kind of alleviate that, to kind of wade through that. It's not as scaremongering as sometimes we're kind of led to believe. Selling on the illnesses and claims is another big issue I think we need to step away from. The compliance issues, I'll get into that now a second with my old PIBA hat on. And the pricing environment, which is a fairly unusual function in the Irish market. So I'll get through that now. So I'm going to break them down to 10, 12 key topics. The first one, serious illness cover. The word isn't serious enough for me. I know that sounds stupid, but we call them different things. In the UK, they call them critical illness cover, which I actually think is better. We've seen trauma cover, ill health cover. I think severe illness cover is probably more appropriate, but I'm not going to throw another cat amongst the pigeons with that one. But I think the key one we need to keep saying is specified. Specified serious illness cover. I think we need to have commonality in that approach because it's not like income protection or life. A specified thing has to happen for you to have a claim, whereas sometimes we think serious illness cover and we bracket it along with income protection and life cover, and it's not. So I think it's just a subtle shift we need to get into our statements of suitability and when we're talking to clients, that something severe and specified has to happen for a claim to happen, and that's what we're trying to push. So again, I'd actually urge everyone to start getting the word specified into everything that you do when you're talking to a client and your statements of suitability, etc. We do need commonality, so there is a few differences. So Dr. Paul Garay was obviously saying critical illness cover, which is a UK term more so than here. The second point I want to begin is, and then just feeding in from what the guys said, this product is still the bones of it, and if you look at claim statistics in any given year, it's still these big three. So what we're trying to say is in 2012 there was 44 illness definitions across the marketplace. When we started ClearChoice this time 2 years ago, there was 83 illness definitions. And now if you look at it, there's 100 illness definitions. But I think we need to stop worrying about the 90 odd and focus in on the big 3, 4, 5. And we'll get into that now in a second. I had a presentation up in Donegal and I put this slide up, and I don't think we should ever advise or sell on something when you're talking about the number of illnesses when you can't even pronounce them. So I can say the first one, brain injury due to hypoxia. I can say necrotizing fasciitis once, and I'm not even going to try the third one. But I was up doing a workshop in Donegal this time last year. They're bonus illnesses. But one broker said, oh, I had a client who had necrotizing fasciitis, probably the only case in Ireland. And then the guy said the third one as well, so I think they were trying to just attack the dub and it was coming down trying to tell them what to do. But again, they're rare, they're bonus illnesses, but don't be trying to sell on those things. Don't be getting bogged down when you see a grid table with that amount of illnesses. I think we need to wade through it and move away from it because the product with Dr. Marius Barnard is still essentially the same, severe illness cover. The protection pricing market, this is a problem, and that's, if anybody's ever heard ClearChoice and we've been in your office, we're trying to move away from the price conversation. We don't like it, we think it's an unusual function, and the pricing pledge is quite an unusual market function compared to, say, the UK. When we were over at a few protection summits last year, they thought it was quite an odd market function, but it's where it is. But I like price pledge because I think it gives you the freedom to pick the best product and company that you like dealing with, based on claims history, definitions, underwriting, whatever it happens to be. So again, trying to get into a price conversation, there's 250 odd brokers in the room here today. Everyone has access to the same price point. So getting into a price race all the time on product is dangerous. And selling specified illness cover, particularly on a product that's 40 cents cheaper, you know, we shouldn't really be in that space as advisors. So again, I'd urge you to focus in on benefits, features, and claims and product rather than price and specified illness cover, because the price is actually a given when you think about it on term business. So again, try and shift that away. And even the discounts as well, I would say. Discounts come and go, but when they are in the market, they often just bring you back to the same spot that you were beginning with. So again, you shouldn't really use it to differentiate it, in our opinion. Nowhere in the Consumer Protection Code do you actually see cheapest price. It's all about most suitable product, and price is a part of that. So again, don't be worrying about the cheapest price. If you think it's the best product and you have the conviction that that's the case, then go with it. This is a problem here as well. We see some grid tables and we look at it here, and I just picked out 4 random yeses for definitions, and all the 6 companies are yeses. But they're not just yeses, they're yeses with these definitions in behind them, the specified definitions. So saying a yes to cancer, a yes to stroke, a yes to Parkinson's, you have to be talking to a client and say, listen, if these things happen and severe enough, you will get a payment out. And I don't think we're doing that well enough in the industry. I'll get into that now in a second. And that's purely on the advisor side, I would say. A yes on its own is dangerous. A partial is also a yes, but a partial can be capped at 15 to 20 grand. Demonstration of research is key, and we can't do it on price alone. Saying you're a broker and saying you do fair analysis, and the days of circling the quote on a quote engine like ClearChoice is gone. You have to show your research based on product as well as price. So you have to get away from the price conversation in our role as brokers. So that's one key issue I'd say as well. They're all very different, and we're having too much of a simplified approach. The partial payments is a key issue. This has come to prominence in the last decade or so when partial payments start coming through. Partial payments were brought in because definitions weren't being met. So if you actually look at the reasons why declinatures happen on any given year, claim statistics, they vary from maybe 5 to 12% depending on the life company. But I'd actually say the biggest reason, and we'd assume the biggest reason, is non-disclosure. It's actually definitions not being met on specified illness cover. So I think that really reflects on us as well, because we're not properly explaining what the client is buying. And I think partials is a problem as well, because if a client, for example, gets cancer, and it's non-invasive, it's called carcinoma in situ. That could be breast, testicular, prostate, urinary bladder, esophagus. They think it's very serious, but under the definitions of specified illness cover contract, it's going to be a partial payment. So if you recommend 100 grand worth of specified illness cover, that's great, but you should really explain the differentiation between the two. And I know it's not a nice conversation, and I actually have some language for a statement of suitability. If you want to email me afterwards, I'll help you just to explain the difference between full and partials. But we really need to be talking to clients and saying, listen, these were brought in the last 10 years for less severe illnesses. And it's important to talk to clients, because the last thing you want to happen is 6 years down the line, a client gets cancer, they go to claim and they contact you, and you're the bad guy because they're getting 50 to 20 grand and you're telling them it's not serious enough. It's not a great conversation, but at least if you have it and you recommend it and nip it in the bud, that statement of suitability phase, they can't come back on you and reflect on you then. So it's really important that you do that. Children's benefits as well are capped at partials, but I'll come to that later as well at €7,500. I think we look too much backwards on claim statistics as well. They're tough for an advisor to wade through. Everyone releases them around March or April, we notice, and the 217 claim statistics came through from all the life companies, and they're great. But I suppose the problem is that's marketing material that we have to advise and look at, but that's based on products that were sold 10, 15, 20 years ago. I think we need to start looking forward as well as backwards on products as well and start thinking, well, what's trends? We've heard things about cancer epidemics, demographics, people being out of work, what the trends are going to be. But I think we look too backwards on claims, to be honest. I think we need to look a bit forward on future trends as well. And Damien's piece was quite interesting on that. And again, I came to that point, the claims to clients. It's actually us not properly understanding the definitions and being explained to them as well. So I just think we need to do a bit more work on that. I think this is an important question to pose to clients, the family medical history question, away from all the technical and the underwriting side of things. We need to just stick to the knitting on specified serious illness cover. Talk about the big three. Talk about MS. Talk about loss of independence. Clients still don't understand that. But I think we don't know what's going to happen to a client. We don't know if they're going to get arthritis. We don't know if they're going to get necrotizing fasciitis. The same way we do risk profiling tools on the investments and pension side of things, we do it not just purely for the clients. We do it to alleviate the advice burden, because we don't know what's going to happen when Trump sends a tweet or the markets wobble. But all we can do is do a risk profiling exercise and really just align as best we can. And a family medical history question, what's important to you? And that might extend out to an uncle being sick, someone having dementia, it might be any number of things. But again, you should just stick to the knitting and ask the family medical history question you're factoring. And again, have some language of that if you want to take it from us as well. This comes up all the time at our workshops, and you always hear us, the great debate. Why don't we advise on both? We find that people tend to be in one camp or the other. And I think that's a bit silly, because I think they're actually quite complementary. We tend to sell one over the other all the time. And I think we actually probably try to sell too much of both when we do sell them. I think with income protection, we always start at 75% less state benefits, and already people's eyes are being glazed over. But I think it's specified illness cover as well. If we did a bit of both, 40 to 50 grand, and some income protection as well, obviously allowing for occupation. But I think we try to sell too much of one or the other instead of selling a bit of both. If you have to think about it, 30 or 40 grand worth of specified illness cover, tax-free lump sum, it's a lot of money for someone who has a middle income salary of 70 grand. And it'll get them over the hump then as well. And this is the key reason, we think, and Dr. Paul Gray touched on it as well. 46% are orthopedic and psychological. They were never on a specified illness cover definition, nor will they ever be. It was actually 52% the year before. But if you look at cancer, it's 20% on income protection, but it probably makes up on average 60% of specified illness cover. So it's a really important product to get people over the hump, but chances are they won't be able to work long term. So just to fit into that as well. This is an issue. This came through, I don't know whether anybody spotted this from the Department of Social Protection. Regina Doherty and Leah Varadkar was in there before, and they really made a lot of hay out of this one. But to be honest, when we actually drill down into it, it's not great. First of all, we went and checked what the budget allocation was for 2018. The annual Christmas bonus budget for social welfare is over 200 million. They allocated 20 to 30 million for this for the self-employed. There's 250,000 small firms in the country. So again, and what you have to do to get it is ridiculous. So for the invalidity pension, to get the bonus of 10 grand, you have to prove that you've been able to work for the previous year and then prove that you're going to be able to work on an ongoing basis. So self-employed people would generally go back to work a bit earlier. They might start and stop again. So really, for the sake and purposes of income protection and specified illness cover, we tend not to count them when we're talking about self-employed people, and it's a huge issue. This one is a bit of a live topic the last probably year. We're seeing a lot of reviewable whole of life contracts with specified illness cover coming up. And I suppose as advisors, when you're confronted with this, you may not be the original advisor, but you have to think about this. I had a case there, we were talking with a couple of brokers, and they had a tranche of clients who were in their early 50s with reviewable whole of life policies. And they bought the client bank, so they inherited it, so they were wondering what to do with it. But what's going to happen is these clients were paying maybe 200 quid a month with some specified illness cover, maybe 100 grand's worth. But what's going to happen in 4 or 5 years' time when that review comes up is they're going to be priced out of it, and they're going to lapse because they're going to go from 200 to 600 quid, and they're going to have no cover. And there's a lot of reasonably healthy people in their late 40s and 50s with reviewable whole of life contracts. So again, you have to be very careful, and we'll always help you with this, but there's a trade-off of benefits, price and guaranteed products that has to happen, because there's no point leaving for the 5 years and then they fall off a cliff at age 55 and they might be 5 years older, sicker, they might not get any cover. So is it better to get them now into a guaranteed term product with a different, we know the definitions from specified illness cover were better 20 or 30 years ago, that's a given, but we also have things like partial payments which weren't on the older contracts, which are great. People are surviving things and moving on, and partial payments fit that mould as well. So I think with reviewable whole of life cases, we need to start thinking about it a bit more and get the trade-off in price and benefits. And again, we'll help you with that in language if you ever want to give me a shout. This is topic number 11. We see this come up a bit as well. Some people have taken a stand on this, and we have as well as a position. We think for assignment, specified illness cover should be separate from a mortgage protection policy. Because generally speaking, people may have the means to continue paying their mortgage, and they might want to ring fence that money for treatment or as a buffer if they get sick again. So we promote that people do it on a standalone basis, separate out from the mortgage protection policy. And the final topic, when I think about our industry, if I think about the banking industry, the general insurance industry, the health insurance industry, the mortgage market, I think they're all better at promoting and marketing themselves than we are in the protection industry, to be honest. Yet we probably got a far more valuable proposition. And a prime example of this will be specified illness cover children's benefits. Medical second opinion service, kids are free. There's rider benefits where children are free. But illness payments for specified illness cover go up to the age of 25 with some providers, and they go up to 25 grand if a child gets one of those diagnosed illnesses. So it's a phenomenal benefit, yet we don't really talk about it. And we're doing a workshop a while ago, and I'm going to introduce somebody now who's a financial advisor in North County Dublin who had a personal experience with this, and she's part of the Childhood Cancer Foundation outside, and she has a son who went through something, and I just want to introduce Jane here from McInerney Saunders. Thanks very much.